The King's Hidden Ball, by Mr. Carlson, 02. It is the 41st millennium. The God Emperor has sat broken upon the golden throne, ruler of man on holy Terra since the betrayal of his sons. The world of men has shaken, trembled, and decayed in his absence. The chosen son now rules in his stead, weeping at what has become of his father's dream. Still he must fight. For as ever the dark comes, beasts, traitors, Xenos, foulness beyond mortal kind seeks to undo the living. Creatures from the outer dark devour all in their path. Mortals do battle with the deathless at every turn. Upon these savage times, the greatest of the Emperor's creations, the Adeptus Astartes do battle with all of this and more alongside normal men from the Astra Militarum, whose bravest wade into death's embrace with no fear. Courage and bravery are still found in man. Its light fades but is not broken. The ever-shifting dangerous warp tides, upon which the mighty vessels of the Navis Imperialis travel leak the reeking taint of corruption, must be navigated between solar systems. Travel in this cursed realm is the pockmarked bedrock upon which the Imperium stands.
In the opulent ballroom of an ancient manor, an exclusive invitation-only costume ball was in full swing. The guests, each adorned in elaborate masks, had gathered for a night steeped in mystery and luxury. These masks, a vibrant kaleidoscope of colors and intricate designs, hid not only their identities, but also the secrets they carried. As the evening wore on, the alcohol flowed generously, melting away inhibitions and loosening tongues. What began as light-hearted banter soon morphed into deeper, darker confessions. In the dimly lit corners of the room, small groups formed, each member eager to outshine the others with their stories. Among the guests was Lady Evelyn, a striking figure in a sapphire gown that matched her mask, adorned with delicate peacock feathers. From the moment I met her, she exuded an air of mystery and allure. Her laughter was infectious, but it was her eyes, glimmering behind the mask, that drew me in. As the night progressed, I found myself in one of those intimate clusters, hanging on to every word of her tale. She spoke of lost loves and whispered betrayals, her voice a mesmerizing melody. Her stories, though spoken in hushed tones, were filled with such vivid detail that they felt almost palpable. Lady Evelyn's presence, much like her mask, was a captivating blend of beauty and enigma, making that night in the ancient manor unforgettable. One woman, her mask a delicate lace creation, spoke of a lover she had poisoned, her voice steady and devoid of remorse. Her eyes, visible through the intricate weave of her mask, were cold and unfeeling, betraying no hint of regret as she detailed the slow, deliberate steps she had taken to end his life. Her composure was chilling, and a hush fell over our group as we absorbed the gravity of her confession. A man in a wolf mask followed, his voice brimming with excitement as he recounted his involvement in a daring bank heist. His eyes glittered with a feral light as he described the meticulous planning, the heart-pounding adrenaline rush of the robbery, and the narrow escape from law enforcement. He spoke with such vivid enthusiasm that it was impossible not to be swept up in his tale, even as we recognized the danger and recklessness at its core. Another guest, whose mask resembled a Venetian plague doctor, stepped into the circle, their presence commanding immediate attention. The long beak of the mask cast a shadow over their face, adding to their menacing aura. They revealed their participation in a brutal underground fighting ring, where survival was often a matter of life and death. As they spoke, the scars on their knuckles caught the soft candlelight, tangible evidence of the violence they had endured and inflicted. Their voice, rough and unyielding, painted a picture of a world where brutality was the norm and mercy was a weakness. As I listened to these confessions, I couldn't help but feel a mix of fascination and unease. Each story, more harrowing than the last, revealed the darkness lurking beneath the elegant facade of the ballroom. The masks, which at first seemed merely decorative, now felt like barriers protecting us from the raw, unfiltered truths that lay behind them. The ballroom, once a haven of opulence and celebration, had transformed into a confessional, where the boundaries of morality blurred and secrets were laid bare in the flickering candlelight. Lady Evelyn, sensing my discomfort, leaned closer and whispered,
"This is what makes these gatherings so intriguing. Beneath the glamour and the finery, we all have our shadows. Tonight, we are free to reveal them, if only for a few hours."
Her words lingered in my mind as the night continued, a reminder that behind every mask there was a story waiting to be told, and perhaps the tales grew more disturbing as the night wore on. Murders, betrayals, and other heinous acts were laid bare, each story more shocking than the last. The guests reveled in the shared understanding that they were all members of an exclusive club, bound by their dark deeds and the thrill of secrecy. As I listened, I felt a strange mixture of revulsion and fascination. The woman in the lace mask spoke again, this time of another lover she had betrayed, her voice as calm as ever. Her words sent a shiver down my spine, but I couldn't tear myself away. The man in the wolf mask shared more details of his criminal exploits, his excitement palpable. I found myself drawn to the intensity of his gaze, even as I recoiled from the implications of his actions. The guest in the Venetian plague doctor mask recounted another fight, one that had nearly cost them their life. The scars on their knuckles seemed to glow in the candlelight, a testament to the brutality they had endured. I could see the pain and pride in their eyes, a combination that both intrigued and unsettled me. Lady Evelyn remained close, her presence a comforting anchor amid the chaos. She whispered to me about her own past, her voice soft and melodic. Her confessions were less violent, but no less haunting. She spoke of lost loves and whispered betrayals, her stories filled with such vivid detail that they felt almost real. I could sense the weight of her secrets, and it made me wonder what other stories were hidden behind the remaining masks. As midnight approached, the host, a figure in a regal golden mask, stepped forward. The room fell silent as he announced that it was time for the unmasking. There was a collective intake of breath as we prepared to reveal ourselves. One by one, the guests removed their masks, and the room was filled with a perverse sense of camaraderie as we looked upon each other, now stripped of our facades. The woman with the lace mask revealed a face that was both beautiful and cold, her eyes reflecting the darkness of her stories. The man in the wolf mask had a rugged, almost predatory look, his features sharp and intense. The guest with the plague doctor mask had a face marked by scars, each one telling a story of survival and violence. As I removed my mask, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The faces around me, twisted by the lives they had led, mirrored my own. There was a shared understanding in the room, a recognition of the darkness that bound us together. Lady Evelyn smiled at me, her face now fully visible. She was as striking without her mask as she had been with it, and her eyes held a depth of emotion that I hadn't noticed before. In that moment, I realized that we were all seeking something in this ancient manor's ballroom: absolution, understanding, or perhaps just the thrill of revealing our true selves, if only for one night. The unmasking was a testament to our shared humanity, a reminder that beneath the opulence and the masks, we were all just souls yearning for connection and redemption. As the last mask was removed, a collective gasp filled the room. Standing at the center of the gathering was a figure who had not moved or spoken all night. Their mask, a grotesque, lifelike representation of a demonic face, remained firmly in place. The other guests stared in horror as they realized that this figure had not unmasked because there was no mask to remove. A wave of terror swept through the room as the realization struck us all at once. This being, this embodiment of pure evil, was exactly what it appeared to be. The guests, who had taken solace in the belief that their sins were shared among equals, now faced the terrifying truth. We were in the presence of something far darker and more malevolent than any of us had ever encountered. felt a chill run down my spine as the demon's eyes locked onto mine. They glowed with an otherworldly light, a deep, burning intensity that seemed to pierce through my very soul. I struggled to maintain my composure, feeling an almost primal fear take hold of me. The room was deathly silent, the previous camaraderie shattered. I noticed the woman with the lace mask, now removed, was trembling, her earlier confidence replaced by sheer terror. The man in the wolf mask had taken a step back, his bravado gone, replaced by a look of stark fear. Even the guest with the plague doctor mask, who had seemed so unflinching in recounting their brutal tales, looked visibly shaken. The figure in the demon mask slowly began to move, each step deliberate and menacing. The other guests recoiled, unsure of what to do or where to go. It was then that the demon spoke, its voice a guttural growl that echoed through the room.
"You have all revealed your darkest secrets," it said, "but none of you can fathom the true depths of evil."
As the demon continued to speak, I felt an overwhelming urge to flee, but my legs refused to move. I glanced at Lady Evelyn, whose face was as pale as the moonlight filtering through the grand windows. She reached out and grasped my hand, her touch grounding me in the moment. "We thought we were safe here," I whispered to her, my voice trembling. "We thought we were among equals."
We were wrong.
She replied, her eyes never leaving the demon.
This is something beyond us.
The demon turned its gaze to the host, the regal figure who had orchestrated this night of revelations.
"You brought them here,"
it said, its tone accusatory.
"You opened the door to this gathering of sinners, but you did not know what else you were inviting."
The host, now visibly shaken, took a step back.
What are you?"
He stammered. The demon's lips twisted into a cruel smile.
"I am the embodiment of your darkest fears, the judge of your souls. You have unmasked yourselves tonight, but now it is time to face the true reckoning."
A sense of dread settled over the room as the demon continued.
"I will hunt you, one by one. Your sins have called me forth, and now you will pay the price."
Panic set in. Some guests tried to flee, but the doors to the ballroom slammed shut with a resounding boom. Others dropped to their knees, pleading for mercy. The room that once echoed with laughter and stories of shared depravity was now filled with cries of terror and despair. As I stood there, hand in hand with Lady Evelyn, I realized that our night of unmasking had turned into a nightmare far beyond anything we could have imagined. The demon's presence was a stark reminder of the consequences of our actions, and I knew that we would never be the same after this night. Panic set in as they scrambled to distance themselves from the creature. The ballroom, once a place of dark revelry, now echoed with screams and the sound of shattering glass. The guests fled in all directions, their masks discarded and their secrets laid bare. I found myself caught in the chaos, desperately trying to find an escape route, but the doors were sealed tight, trapping us in this nightmare. Lady Evelyn and I pressed ourselves against a wall, trying to stay out of the demon's direct path. The guests' frenzied attempts to escape only seemed to amuse the creature, its laughter a sinister echo that reverberated through the grand hall. The opulence of the manor was now tainted by the horror unfolding within its walls. In the confusion, I saw the woman who had worn the lace mask trip and fall, her eyes wide with terror as the demon approached her. She screamed, a sound that cut through the cacophony of panic, but it was too late. The demon's hand reached out, and in a flash, she was gone, her scream abruptly silenced. The man in the wolf mask tried to fight back, his earlier tales of bravado now a stark contrast to the fear etched on his face. He grabbed a candelabrum and swung it at the demon, but his efforts were futile. With a swift, brutal motion, the demon dispatched him, his lifeless body crumpling to the floor. The guest with the plague doctor mask managed to make it to a window, frantically trying to break the glass. The sound of shattering shards filled the air, But before they could escape, the demon was upon them. The plague doctor turned to face their fate, defiance in their eyes, but the outcome was inevitable. In the aftermath, the manor stood silent and empty, a testament to the horrors that had been revealed. The members of the exclusive club, now scattered and forever changed, could never forget the night they faced the true embodiment of their darkest fears. As the chaos subsided and the echoes of screams faded into the dark corridors of the ancient manor, the man on his throne sat back, surveying the scene with a satisfied air. His golden mask, now removed, revealed a face of unsettling calm and cold, calculating eyes. At his feet stood his companion, a monstrous figure drenched in the blood and remains of those who had tried to escape. The man in gold glared at us with an intensity that pierced through the silence. We who had fabricated our evils to gain entrance, somehow believing ourselves above the pettiness of murder and malice, were now exposed. The demon did not know us, nor did the man in gold, but their eyes held a judgment that was inescapable. Lady Evelyn and I stood, breathless and shaken, in the remnants of the ballroom. The once grand hall was now littered with broken glass and abandoned masks, the air heavy with the scent of fear and despair. The man in gold rose from his throne, his movements deliberate and measured as he approached us.
"You!"
he said, his voice cold and commanding.
"You thought you could deceive us, that your fabricated tales would grant you entry to this gathering of darkness, but you underestimated the price of admission."
I felt a surge of defiance mixed with fear. "We did not come here to deceive," I replied, my voice trembling but resolute. "We sought to understand, to witness the depths to which humanity can sink. We did not anticipate this horror." The man in gold's eyes narrowed.
"Curiosity and arrogance,"
he said softly, almost to himself.
"Such traits often lead to one's downfall."
He turned to the demon, who stood silently, its grotesque form a constant reminder of the night's terrors.
"They are not like the others,"
he declared.
Their sins are of a different nature. They do not belong here.
The demon's eyes flickered with a strange, unreadable emotion. It stepped forward, and for a moment I feared it would unleash its wrath upon us. But instead, it simply looked at us, its gaze piercing and profound.
You sought the darkness,
It said, its voice a low growl.
and now you have found it. Leave this place and remember what you have witnessed. The darkness within is not something to be trifled with.
With that, the demon stepped back, and the man in gold gestured toward the grand doors, now open as if by some unseen force. Lady Evelyn and I exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between us. We turned and walked towards the exit, our steps echoing in the now silent hall. As we crossed the threshold, I glanced back one last time. The man in gold watched us, his expression inscrutable. The demon stood at his side, a silent sentinel of the darkness that had been unleashed. The manor's ballroom, with all its secrets and horrors, faded into the night behind us. The throne room, once resplendent with elegance, was now a macabre tableau of the night's horrors. The once golden-masked man smiled, a slow, sinister curve of his lips as he looked down at his blood-soaked accomplice.
"Magnificent,"
he murmured, his voice smooth and velvety.
"You never fail to impress."
The creature, its demonic visage unchanging, nodded in silent acknowledgement. Between them, there was an understanding, a bond forged in darkness and blood. They had orchestrated this night with meticulous precision, each step leading to this climactic revelation. As they exchanged pleasantries and compliments, their conversation was interrupted by the soft creak of an unseen door opening. From the shadows, a third figure emerged, untouched by the carnage that had unfolded. This newcomer was draped in a cloak of deep, inky black, their face obscured by the shadows cast by a wide-brimmed hat. The man on the throne leaned forward, his interest piqued.
Ah, our honored guest.
He said, his tone dripping with mock formality.
I trust you found the evening's entertainment to your liking?
The newcomer stepped closer, the cloak whispering against the floor, revealing a slender, almost ethereal figure. Their voice, when they spoke, was a haunting melody that seemed to echo from the very walls of the manor.
You have both outdone yourselves,
They said, their tone carrying an air of ancient authority.
but I am not here to offer mere praise. I am here to discuss the future of our alliance.
The golden masked man inclined his head, his eyes gleaming with interest.
Of course.
He replied smoothly.
Our goals are aligned, are they not? We seek to reveal the true nature of humanity, to strip away the veneer of civility and expose the darkness within.
The cloaked figure nodded.
Indeed, but there is much work to be done. Tonight was merely a beginning. There are others who must be brought into the fold, others who will help us achieve our ultimate aim.
As they spoke, the blood-soaked creature remained silent, its presence a looming reminder of the night's brutality. The golden-masked man and the cloaked figure continued their discussion, their voices weaving a tapestry of plans and ambitions that stretched far beyond the confines of the manor. In that moment, it became clear that the horrors of the evening were just the first act in a much larger, more sinister play. The exclusive club, bound by blood and secrets, was poised to expand its influence, its members united by a shared vision of a world where darkness reigned supreme. And as they plotted and schemed, the manor itself seemed to come alive, its ancient walls whispering of the horrors yet to come. The night of the costume ball had revealed their true natures, but it was only the beginning of a much darker journey. As the conversation between the man on the throne and the cloaked figure unfolded, a strange and eerie phenomenon began to take place among the corpses of the partygoers scattered across the ballroom floor. The golden-masked man paused, his eyes narrowing with interest as he watched the scene before him. The blood-soaked remnants of the guests, once lifeless and still, began to twitch and move. Shredded flesh and torn limbs started to knit themselves back together in a grotesque parody of life. The ballroom, now a charnel house, was filled with the sound of squelching flesh and snapping bones as the bodies reassembled themselves. Chunks of flesh, splintered bones, and pools of blood pulled together as if guided by an unseen hand. The guests' once elegant attire hung in tatters, now soaked with gore, but their bodies continued to reform with an unnatural precision. An eerie, unearthly light glowed within their eyes, a sickly luminescence that hinted at something beyond death. One by one, the reanimated corpses rose to their feet, their movements jerky and mechanical at first, but gradually becoming more fluid and coordinated. The eyes of the golden-masked man gleamed with a mixture of amusement and satisfaction as he observed the transformation. His demonic companion, still dripping with blood, stood motionless, a silent sentinel to the unfolding horror. As the last of the guests reassembled, they began to move with purpose. In a macabre, orderly procession, they approached the throne. Each newly risen figure, once a person of status and influence, now reduced to a puppet of dark forces, knelt before the man in the golden mask and his demon. The first to kneel was the woman in the lace mask, her face now a ghastly visage of death, her eyes glowing with that eerie light. Next was the man in the wolf mask, his once vibrant eyes now empty and luminescent. One by one they came forward, each kneeling in turn, their bodies stitched together in a grotesque semblance of their former selves. The golden-masked man smiled, a chilling expression devoid of warmth.
Welcome back, my guests.
He said, his voice carrying a note of triumphant satisfaction.
You have all been given a second chance, a new purpose.
The cloaked figure watched with interest, their eyes hidden, but their posture radiating approval.
You have done well,
they said softly.
Together we will reshape the world in our image.
The reanimated guests, now servants to a darker power, remained silent. Their allegiance was no longer to their former lives, but to the man who had orchestrated their resurrection. As they knelt before him, the ballroom's sinister atmosphere deepened, the unearthly glow in their eyes casting an eerie light across the blood-stained floor. In that moment, the true nature of the exclusive club was revealed. It was not merely a gathering of individuals with dark pasts, but a cult bound by death and resurrection, their souls enslaved to the man in the golden mask and his demonic companion. The night of the costume ball had been a test, a ritual to initiate them into a new, terrifying existence. As the last of the guests took their place before the throne, the golden-masked man raised his arms in a gesture of command.
"Rise, my servants,"
he intoned.
"Our work has only just begun."
The reanimated figures stood, their eyes still glowing, their bodies ready to carry out their master's bidding. The manor, once a place of revelry and secrets, had become a stronghold of darkness, its halls echoing with the whispered promises of power and domination. The man in the golden mask and his demon had succeeded in their unholy task, and the world beyond the manor would soon feel the consequences. Lady Evelyn and I had infiltrated the dark cult's macabre ball with confidence, disguised in noble finery and civilian clothes. Our usual battle armor and weapons were left behind, replaced by delicate masks and elegant attire to blend in with the sinister crowd. We had prepared meticulously, but nothing could have readied us for the true horror that awaited. The ball was in full swing when we first noticed the unsettling undercurrents. The guests, hidden behind their elaborate masks, exchanged dark secrets and confessions with an unnerving ease. Our mission was clear: gather intelligence on the cult's activities and, if possible, dismantle their operations from within. But as the night wore on, we realized we were in far deeper than anticipated. The moment of unmasking arrived, and the true nature of the cult was revealed. Bodies lay strewn across the ballroom, only to grotesquely stitch themselves back together, animated by some dark power. The man in the golden mask, now unmasked, and his demon companion stood at the center of this nightmare, orchestrating the horrific resurrection of the cult members. Panic set in, but Evelyn and I knew we had to remain calm. The chaos provided a brief window of distraction. We moved swiftly, slipping through the shadows towards the nearest exit. The once grand manor was now a labyrinth of horrors, the sounds of reanimated bodies and whispered commands echoing through the halls. Our civilian clothes, chosen to blend in, now felt like a hindrance. The fine fabrics restricted our movement, and the lack of armor left us vulnerable. We pressed on, our every sense heightened, aware that one misstep could mean the end. As we navigated the darkened corridors, we encountered pockets of resistance. Cult members, still in the process of reanimation, staggered towards us. With no weapons at hand, we relied on our training and resourcefulness. I used a heavy candelabrum to fend off an advancing corpse, while Evelyn, ever the warrior, managed to disarm and incapacitate a cultist with her bare hands. Finally, we reached the grand staircase leading to the manor's main entrance. The sight of the open doors gave us a brief glimmer of hope, but standing in our way was the cloaked figure who had emerged from the shadows earlier. They blocked our path, eyes gleaming with malevolent intent.
We have to make a run for it.
Evelyn whispered, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. I nodded, and together we charged. The figure moved to intercept, but Evelyn's quick reflexes and brute strength knocked them off balance, giving us the opening we needed. We sprinted through the doors, the cool night air hitting our faces as we emerged into the courtyard. Behind us, the manor roared with the sound of dark magic and the shuffling of the undead. We didn't look back. We ran through the winding paths of the estate, past hedgerows and fountains, our breaths ragged but determined. Eventually, we reached the edge of the property, where a hidden vehicle awaited us. We clambered in, our hands shaking as we started the engine and sped away from the nightmare we had just escaped. As the manor disappeared into the distance, we allowed ourselves a moment to breathe. We had survived, but the mission had been a stark reminder of the power and depravity of the enemies we faced. Our disguises had allowed us to gather crucial information, but the cost had been high. We vowed to return, better prepared and armed, to confront and dismantle the cult that had almost claimed our lives. The Emperor's work was far from over, and neither were we.